It's a deeply emotional day for R&B fans across the globe. Walter Scott, one of the founding pillars of the iconic group The Whispers, has sadly passed away at 81 years old. Yet, what many people don't realize is the touching story behind his final days, his private health battle fought in silence, and how his absence will leave a permanent mark on the group's legacy. Stick with us, because what we're about to uncover may leave you in complete disbelief. Walter Scott wasn't simply a member of the Whispers, he was a foundational presence, a quiet force with a smooth baritone that helped mold one of the most legendary R&B groups in history. From their emergence in the late 1960s through the golden age of the 70s and 80s, he was there. His voice became an essential part of the sound that defined eras, a sound that still echoes through backyard cookouts, family get-togethers, and soul-filled nights all around the world. Now, with the heartbreaking announcement of his death at 81, fans and fellow musicians alike are mourning a titan, while wondering, how did this happen? What were his final days really like? What does this loss mean for the future of a group that shaped so much of his life and career? In this video, we're diving into Walter Scott's life, his legacy, and those final private moments. We'll reflect on the rise of the Whispers, Walter's distinct role in their lasting success, the illness he kept hidden from the spotlight, and the heartfelt tributes that are now flooding in from every corner of the globe. We'll also share statements from the family, the untold truth, and moments fans never had the chance to witness until now. This isn't just the passing of a beloved artist. This may very well signal the end of a chapter in soul and R&B history. Believe us, you'll want to hear everything we've uncovered. What we reveal in the coming moments may reshape how you see the Whispers and deepen your understanding of Walter Scott's powerful influence on the music world. Long before the bright lights of the stage, the platinum hits, and the soaring chart success, Walter Scott was just a hopeful young man from Los Angeles, holding on to a dream that wouldn't let go. Born in 1943, Walter came of age during a time when rhythm and blues weren't just sounds, they were survival for Black communities. He was drawn early to the voices of legends like Sam Cooke, Clyde McPhatter, and Jackie Wilson. But what made Walter stand out from so many other hopefuls was his gift not for dominating or leading, but for blending. His harmonizing skills elevated others, creating a rich and seamless sound. That rare talent became his trademark in the celebrated group that would eventually become the Whispers. During the early 1960s, Walter, along with identical twins Wallace and Walter Scotty Scott, no relation, Marcus Hudson, and Nicholas Caldwell, came together friends with one goal: to make music that would last generations, full of harmony and grace. Starting on street corners and in neighborhood talent shows across Los Angeles, they carved out a name for themselves not with gimmicks or flash, but with sheer vocal excellence and soul-stirring performances. Walter Scott was part of it all from the very beginning, often standing visually in the background.
But never when it came to his voice. Walter's rich lower register harmonies formed the sonic bedrock that allowed the group's soaring higher melodies to shine. His presence on stage was always understated, dignified, and refined to stark contrast to the often exuberant showmanship of other acts during that era. And that difference? It worked out by the time the Whispers signed with Soul Clock Records in the late 1960s and later achieved major success with Solar Records in the 1970s. The group had already carved out a place as one of R&B's most respected acts, and Walter's role within the group had long since been cemented. He was the steady hand, the quiet craftsman who never sought center stage, but without him, the music wouldn't have resonated the same way. Hits like "And the Beat Goes On," "It's a Love Thing," and "Rocksteady" may have brought the vocal spotlight to Scotty and Wallace, but those close to the music producers and insiders alike often credited Walter for his precise sense of tone, arrangement, and timing. That was the glue behind the signature Whispers sound. He wasn't loud, but his influence resounded in every chord, every blend, and every lasting note. As the group evolved into one of the most enduring soul ensembles in music history. With a career stretching across 6 decades, Walter remained a core member. He was often behind the curtains, studying, supporting, and serving, never seeking the limelight. He was the kind of musician who believed deeply in the strength of the group, and that belief paid off in full. The Whispers were eventually inducted into the Vocal Group Hall of Fame, honored with Lifetime Achievement Awards, and recognized as living legends, performing to sold-out venues around the world. And through it all, Walter Scott remained the quiet motor behind the melody, proving that legacy isn't always forged by the loudest in the room, but sometimes by the most reliable. As the years moved forward, the Whispers kept touring, releasing new records and captivating crowds with their sleek choreography and lush harmonies. But fans slowly began to notice a change. Walter Scott wasn't always on stage anymore. At first, the signs were subtle. During performances in the late 2000s and early 2010s, he occasionally didn't appear in promotional images or was absent from certain live dates. When he did show up, he'd sometimes stand quietly at the side or even sit during performances and often didn't sing at all. Longtime fans started to ask, had he retired? Was he unwell? Had he chosen to leave the spotlight quietly? But neither Walter nor the group provided any clear answers. No official announcements were made. No heartfelt farewells or in-depth interviews explained his absence. Walter simply slipped into the shadows just as quietly as he had spent decades building his reputation. And for someone who always valued harmony more than attention, perhaps that felt fitting. But for those who admired him and the music he helped craft, his absence left an unmistakable void. By 2016, his appearances had almost completely stopped. The Whispers carried on as a trio, led by Scotty and Wallace Scott alongside Leavescrowd Degree. Walter's name was rarely brought up, and when it did surface, it was usually paired with vague remarks like, he's taking some time or he's stepping back. Insiders close to the group now suggest that Walter had been battling chronic health problems for several years, likely related to heart conditions and mobility issues, though no formal diagnosis has ever been confirmed publicly. Those who spent time with him in private described him as gentle, introspective, and fully conscious of his weakening strength, yet still passionately committed to the group's legacy and continued success. One longtime sound engineer, speaking on condition of anonymity, shared that Walter never wanted anyone's pity. That's exactly why he kept things quiet. He didn't want fans to remember him in a fragile state. He wanted to be remembered in his finest form, dressed sharp in a suit, moving with the rhythm on stage. There's a deep dignity in that choice, the decision to step back not because of scandal or failure, but because his body simply couldn't keep up with his spirit any longer. Reportedly, Walter kept in regular contact with the other members. Even if he was no longer joining them on the road, he would still listen to recordings, quietly offer advice, and extend his emotional support. Even as his health declined, he never fully separated himself from the music. It ran through his veins. According to close friends, Walter continued to listen in on rehearsals, critique new vocal arrangements, and provide feedback on harmonies. But by 2022, those around him began to notice a significant shift. His condition had worsened. He became more withdrawn, spending the majority of his time at home with loved ones, turning down interviews and avoiding public events in order to stay out of the spotlight. There were rumors, quiet ones, that he was receiving ongoing medical care, but no official details ever surfaced. What had become clear, however, was that Walter Scott wasn't preparing for a return. He was preparing for a peaceful farewell. And then, in June 2025, the devastating news was made public. Walter Scott had died at the age of 81. There were no glaring headlines or breaking news reports. No televised memorial specials, at least. Not at first. Just a simple, heartfelt message released by the surviving members of the Whispers. It is with deep sorrow that we announce the passing of our brother and original member, Walter Scott. He was a cornerstone of both our sound and Walter Scott, our family. His presence on and off stage will be missed in ways words can't express. That quiet departure, following years of silence, hit fans hard. It wasn't just the passing of a man, it was the loss of a spirit that helped define an era of music. When news of Walter Scott's death began to circulate, it didn't dominate mainstream front pages. But within soul, R&B, and Black music communities, the impact felt seismic. Artists, fans, musicians, and cultural icons flooded timelines and feeds, not only mourning the loss, but celebrating the life of someone who had, in quiet power, shaped the soundtrack of their own journeys. From Motown legends to contemporary neo-soul performers, the tributes poured in like long overdue praise. Smokey Robinson, who had once shared stages with the Whispers throughout the 70s and 80s, wrote, "Walter Scott was the essence of true harmony, smooth, humble, and devoted to the music. May he rest in eternal melody." Charlie Wilson, the iconic Gap Band frontman and fellow veteran of the R&B circuit, shared a touching video tribute stating, "We came up in the same business, played many of the same stages. And let me tell you, Walter didn't have to outshine anyone. He was the glue. And you don't realize how vital the glue is until things begin to fall apart." And within the Whispers, Walter was that glue. Even younger artists such as PJ Morton and H.E.R. have spoken about how they grew up listening to the Whispers, often citing the group's lush harmonies as a direct influence on their own vocal layering and musical arrangements. But beyond the public tributes, more personal stories began to emerge, accounts that revealed Walter Scott not just as a singer, but as a mentor, a silent encourager, and a quiet guardian of authentic R&B. Kenny "Babyface" Edmonds renowned for producing music for countless R&B legends, once remarked in a 2015 interview, recently rediscovered that Walter had an ear like Quincy Jones. He could tell when a note was either too much or too little. He could sense when the emotion was missing from a song, even if every note was technically correct. That's rare. A former background vocalist who toured with the Whispers in the late 1990s shared anonymously that Walter was always the last one to leave rehearsal. Not because he needed to, but because he wanted to ensure that everyone felt fully prepared. He didn't speak often, but when he gave a nod or quietly said, "Nice work," it meant more than a crowd's applause. And here's something many didn't expect. In the hours following the public announcement of Walter's death, fans in several cities began reporting that classic Whispers vinyl and CDs were suddenly selling out in local record shops. Online, streams for Rocksteady, Lady, and a song for Donnie jumped by over 200% in just 24 hours. It was a bittersweet reminder that sometimes it takes a loss to truly prompt people to rediscover what they once had. Walter's children, who have mostly stayed out of the public, I released a joint message through the Whispers official channels, saying, "Our father may have been quiet in public, but in private he was a man of deep faith, immense patience, and constant melody. He loved his fans, he loved the group, and he loved the music that gave him purpose for more than 50 years. We thank you all for loving him in return." What touched many fans even more deeply was what wasn't said. Despite his enormous impact, Walter never launched a solo career. He never did a farewell tour. He never sat for a big tell-all interview, and yet, his presence, even in silence, was so influential that his passing has now sparked a movement. Fans and fellow artists alike are calling for a posthumous recognition, whether it's a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or a tribute concert in honor of Walter and others who quietly shaped the foundation of R&B behind the scenes. Walter Scott's death has not only left a deep ache in the hearts of those who followed him, it's rocked the very foundation of one of R&B's longest-standing groups. With more than 60 years of music, touring, and soul-stirring performances behind them, the Whispers are more than just a band, they are a cultural institution. But now, with one of their founding voices gone, the question everyone is left asking is, what happens now? In their official statement following Walter's passing, the group was heartfelt but reserved. While mourning their beloved brother in harmony, remaining members Wallace, Whispers-Leaveil Degree, and a smaller supporting team announced they would be taking time to grieve and reflect on the best way forward. But longtime followers of the group know they've faced this kind of loss before. Back in 2000, founding member Marcus Hudson passed away after a prolonged illness. Rather than replacing him, the group made a powerful and respectful choice to continue performing as a trio in honor of his contribution. They honored Marcus's memory in every performance, refusing to allow anyone to take his place. That choice earned the Whispers a deep reputation for loyalty and respect. Now, with Walter's passing, many believe they'll make the same decision once more. But this time, the stakes are even higher with both Marcus and now Walter gone, and the remaining members all well into their 70s. There's a growing sense that this could signify the final act in the Whispers' long and celebrated performance history. Behind the curtain, sources close to the group have shared that quiet discussions have taken place about a farewell tour, not as a way to capitalize on Walter's death, but rather as a way to honor his life. The vision would be a celebratory, multi-city event, one that blends archival footage, live vocals, and heartfelt tributes from artists who were shaped by Walter's work and the legacy of the Whispers. Think of it as a living eulogy, a tribute in motion. No replacements, no stand-ins, just a celebration of what Walter built on another potential project reportedly being explored as a documentary-style special. According to murmurs within the music world, yes, pun intended, producers have approached the group with interest in creating a limited docu-series. This series would not only spotlight the Whispers' decade-spanning journey, but also tell Walter's story in full, his music, his life, and the quiet strength he carried throughout both. It would mark the first time many fans get to truly hear his story from his own lens, through rare interviews, family reflections, and never-before-released content. Still, some fans are raising difficult questions. Can the Whispers continue on without Walter? Should they even try? It's not a question with an easy answer. On one hand, the music is timeless, and audiences will always long to hear those classic harmonies live. On the other hand, legacy is delicate, and if not handled with care, it can quickly unravel. Music historians point to similar transitions by legendary acts like The Temptations, the Four Tops, and Earth, Wind, and Fire groups that pressed on with different lineups, achieving varying degrees of success. The core challenge remains the same. How do you evolve without losing the very thing that made you unforgettable? As for the Whispers' remaining members, they've taken a measured and thoughtful approach. In a recent brief interview, Scott reflected, "We're still processing. Walter wasn't just in the group, he was our brother. Whatever we decide to do next, we'll take our time. We'll do it with love. We'll do it in his honor." And perhaps that's the most important point to hold on to. The Whispers were never just five men singing on a stage. They were a representation of unity, of timeless musical craftsmanship, of a sound that wrapped itself around your soul like a treasured memory. Walter Scott embodied that spirit silently, steadfastly, and even now, in his absence, that presence is still there. In every harmony the group sings, in every melody echoing through the radio, in every lyric that stirs up a memory, Walter's influence lingers. So whether or not the Whispers continue from this point forward, one thing remains certain: Walter's role will never be replaced, and his legacy will never fade.